I never believed in ghosts, not because I was brave, but because I thought humans were the scariest things alive. Until I took this job. A job that sounded harmless, quiet, isolated night security at the abandoned Alcatraz prison. The same prison that once held America's most dangerous criminals. The place where they say, if a soul dies here, it never truly leaves. I thought it was just a tourist tale, a spooky legend to sell more tickets. But something strange happened on my first night. And on the second night, it happened again. By the third, I wasn't sure if I was awake or trapped inside a nightmare. Because every night someone calls my name from inside those empty cells. And worse, I've started to change. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a story about what you slowly lose night after night, when your soul stops belonging to you. The man who interviewed me was old, his hair completely white, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in years. He didn't ask about my experience or qualifications, just one question. Do you believe in ghosts? I laughed. He didn't. Before I left, he handed me a crumpled old paper, a map of the prison with a few handwritten notes. Do not enter, Block D after 2:47 a.m. If someone calls your name, don't answer. Do not look into any mirror past midnight. My first night on the job, I was ferried to the island on a small boat. Just me and the captain, who barely spoke a word, except, be sure to come back before sunrise, if you can still find your way. The fog hung thick over the ocean, the air sharp and freezing. When the prison silhouette emerged under the pale moonlight, something felt off. Not peaceful silence, but hollow emptiness. I pushed open the rusty steel doors. The hinges let out a screech like something screaming. Inside, it was as if time had frozen decades ago. Dusty desks, flickering ceiling lights, and rows of cells that gaped like black mouths waiting to swallow me. I told myself, just one night. I'll get used to it. I turned on the surveillance system. 12 screens lit up, each showing a section of the prison. But one thing was strange. A camera in Block D was still functioning perfectly clear and bright, even though that section had been disconnected from power years ago. On screen, I saw a dark figure standing silently in the hallway. I zoomed in, it vanished. I checked the recording log. Nothing. Just static. But I know what I saw. As I patrolled the hallway, I noticed a heavy steel door at the end left ajar. Cell 33. I approached, flashlight in hand. Empty. But as I turned to walk away, the door slammed shut behind me, locking itself with a mechanical click as if someone had issued a command. I spun around. No one was there. Back in the surveillance room, I noticed a piece of paper sitting neatly on the desk. A note I was sure hadn't been there before. Scribbled in a shaky hand, it read, "Tonight is the first night. They know you're here." I started to feel cold even though the heaters were still running. I remembered the warnings on the old note and glanced at the clock. 2:46 a.m. One more minute to 2:47. And I was standing right in front of Block D. The minute hand struck 2:47 a.m. I don't know why, but every fiber in my body tensed. The air shifted like the entire building inhaled at once and went still. Then came the sound. A low, rhythmic clanking, metal dragging across concrete, echoing from Block D. I froze. It wasn't footsteps. It was like chains being pulled by something that crawled. I remembered the note, "Do not enter Block D after 2:47. I stepped back. And then the lights flickered. Suddenly, the overhead PA system, which I knew was disconnected, crackled to life. Static. Then, a whisper. "You're not alone." It was in my voice, but I hadn't spoken. I turned to the camera screens. Every feed was now black, except one. Block D again. A figure was standing still, looking up at the camera. It raised a hand and pointed directly at me. I tried to shake it off and walked toward the staff bathroom. I splashed water on my face and looked into the mirror. But my reflection didn't move. It just stared back at me, its head slightly tilted. Then it smiled, a twitching, toothy grin, while I stood there frozen in horror. I turned away and ran. I didn't look back. As I passed the lower corridor, I saw something strange. Wet footprints, fresh, human-sized bear trailing down the hall leading away from cell 13D. I followed them with my flashlight, each step making a faint squish. Then I heard breathing behind me. I spun around, nothing. But the footprints, they were still forming. One by one in real time, like someone invisible was walking away and towards something. I returned to the control room and saw the logbook, its pages flipping on their own as if a gust of wind had entered, though the windows were sealed. The pen lifted, and someone began writing. Rule number 4. If you hear a knock at exactly 3:13 a.m., do not answer, not even once. I grabbed the pen. It was ice cold, the ink still wet. At exactly 3:13 a.m. I heard it. Knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the back door. I stared at it. The door had no handle from the outside. Another knock. I leaned in, heart pounding, when I heard something slide underneath the door. A photo. It was me standing in the control room, taken from behind, time-stamped 2:46 a.m. I realized something horrifying. These rules weren't just to keep me safe. They were boundaries for something else. Something that once followed rules too. But what happens when I break one? I stared at the list of rules again. There were now 7 written in total. But I only remember 4. I didn't write the others. And the 7th was in handwriting that looked exactly like mine. It read, "Don't trust the next version of yourself." I was walking the main corridor around 3:26 a.m. when I heard it. A faint, almost delicate click. Click. Click, like fingernails tapping on glass. I froze, turned off my flashlight, and listened. The sound wasn't echoing. It was close. I looked toward the row of abandoned cells and realized the tapping was coming from inside one of them. I raised the flashlight. The moment I lit up the bars, the sound stopped. But I saw it, a single handprint. Fresh. On the inside of the cell window. In the administrative hallway, there's a framed black and white photograph of the original prison warden and his staff. I'd passed it 10 times already. But this time, there was another face in the picture. A figure in the far left corner, half-shadowed. Head down. No face. I leaned in closer. That wasn't in the original photo. I reached for my phone to snap a picture, but when I looked back up, the figure was gone. I passed cell 19. The moment I stepped near it, the smell hit me like old meat left out in the sun. But it wasn't just that. I could feel something inside. A weight. A presence. I turned my flashlight. Inside, the bed was torn. The walls were scratched with deep markings. But on the back wall, written in what looked like dried blood, "He never left." Back in the surveillance room, I noticed something strange. The hallway lights were blinking, but not randomly. It was a pattern. On. Off. Pause. On. Pause. Pause. Off. I recorded it and looked it up. It matched Morse code. One word: help. I returned to the security office to find the wooden chair pulled away from the desk, angled toward the corner of the room like someone had been sitting there watching me. I hadn't left it like that. I pushed it back in. 10 minutes later, I turned around, and it was angled again. But this time it faced me. The northwest wing had been sealed off, but I liked checking it, a force of habit. This time, though, as I walked past the barred window, I saw a silhouette standing in the courtyard. Still. Watching me. It didn't move. It didn't blink. I looked away for just a second. When I looked back, it was gone. But now the figure appeared on camera 12 inside the building. The radio crackled again. I hadn't touched it in hours. A distorted voice came through the static. "Why did you come back?" I whispered. "Who is this?" the voice replied. "You already know." I wrote everything down, times, details, even tried recording video. But when I checked the footage, it was all blank. No lights, no shadows, nothing. Except one thing. A faint whisper in the background. "Don't forget what you saw. We won't." I was checking the west wing again when I noticed something wrong. Cell 33. The one that slammed shut days ago was now wide open. Inside, sitting perfectly still on the edge of the metal bed, was a man. He wore an old inmate's uniform, torn and soaked in something dark. His back was to me. I spoke. "Sir, this area is off limits." No response. I stepped closer. My radio buzzed sharply. Then, he turned his head, but not his body. Slowly, unnaturally. He smiled a crooked, wide grin and whispered, "Finally, you're ready." I rushed back to the control room, hands shaking. I flipped through the camera feeds, trying to confirm what I saw. On camera 6, facing the main corridor, there was a face staring directly into the lens. But here's the thing. The lens was 8 feet off the ground, and the face, it was mine. Eyes lifeless, mouth open, like a twisted version of myself watching me from the other side. I tried to leave. I packed my things, grabbed my flashlight, and headed to the exit. The main gate wouldn't open. I typed in the code, tried the override key, slammed on the release bar. Nothing. Then I heard the clicking sound again. Fingernails on steel. It was getting closer, but not from one direction, from all around me. I ran down the hallway past cell block B when I felt a breath on the back of my neck. Warm. Human. And then a whisper, low and mocking. "You're not the first." I spun around with the flashlight. No one. But behind me on the wall now, handprints. Dozens. Fresh. Dripping. All reaching toward where I stood. Back in the office, the logbook lay open. I hadn't touched it. But on the last page, there was a new list. Dozens of names. All with the same note beside them. Did not leave. At the bottom, one last name had just appeared. Mine. The ink still fresh. As if someone, or something, had just written it. The PA system, dead for years, roared to life. A voice deep and hollow echoed across the prison. "Show him." All the lights in the building cut out. My flashlight flickered violently, then held. I turned, and there they were, a row of inmates lining the hall. Silent, motionless, staring. But none had eyes. I backed into the office and looked at the time. 2:47 a.m. Again. I checked my phone, same. I'd been walking, running, hiding for over an hour. But the time never moved. This place wasn't just haunted. It was looping me, feeding off me. And worse, every time I blinked, the hallway behind me grew darker. And they stepped 1 inch closer. I'm still here. The same hallway, the same echo, the same stare. The lights blink, the voices call, and that smile, that twisted grin from cell 33. It's getting clearer each night. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. But I know this. They know my name. And now, I'm starting to forget it. I glanced at the clock. 2:47 a.m. My shift should have ended by now. I had felt hours pass. I checked my phone, 2:47 a.m. I booted the office computer, same time. I even turned on the analog wall clock. The second hand ticked once, then snapped back. Time wasn't moving. And worse, I remembered seeing this exact same moment before. I walked through the main hall and saw the same photo on the wall fall. Just like last night. The same loud clatter, the same broken frame. I picked it up, and just like before, the image had changed, a faceless man in the corner. I whispered, "I've done this." And the air replied, "Yes." I turned on the radio out of habit. My voice came through the static. A perfect playback of something I'd said the night before. "I'm going to lose my mind if this keeps happening." Then the radio glitched and said, "You already have." In the control room, the logbook was open again. I'd written a short report the night before, just a single page. Now, there were 12 identical pages. My handwriting, my words. But every time something changed slightly. On page 5, I mentioned 3 knocks. On page 6, I wrote, "They called my name." On page 9, I wrote, "I answered." I don't remember answering, but maybe one of me did. I reviewed camera footage. There I was walking the halls, but I didn't remember this version. In the video, I stopped at cell 33, reached out, and walked in. I watched myself disappear inside. But in this timeline, I never went in. I tried to remember what I did an hour ago. Couldn't. I tried to recall the date. Blank. My name. It came out wrong. Like someone else's voice speaking through my mouth. I ran to the mirror. I looked the same, but not entirely. My reflection blinked out of sync. The next time I opened the hallway door, I was back in the control room. Instantly. No transition. I screamed, opened it again. Now I was at the docks. Again the door. Now I was in cell block D. The prison was folding in on itself. Every door was a different version of the same night. I was being shuffled between my own memories or simulations of them. I found a note pinned to my shirt. I didn't put it there. It read, "There's only one way out. Block D2, 47 a.m. No turning back." I swore I wouldn't go near that place again. But maybe I already have. Maybe I'm already in there and this version of me is just a copy that hasn't figured it out yet. I didn't plan to go to Block D. I told myself that every night. But that night the heavy steel gate at the entrance was already open. Not unlocked. Wide open. Like it had been expecting me. No alarms, no resistance. Just cold, heavy silence, the kind that presses against your chest like a weight. I stepped in. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air changed. The temperature dropped instantly. I could see my breath fog in front of me. But worse, the sound changed. It was like the prison behind me had muted. My footsteps were muffled. The buzzing lights above gave off a dim yellow hue, but even light felt weak here. I turned to check behind me. The entrance was gone. Only a long, dark hallway now stood in its place. I walked deeper into the cell block. The cells were all open, each one empty, each one dark. But as I passed cell 19, I heard a whisper. Not just any whisper, my own voice, saying, "Don't do it. Turn back." I stopped. A moment later, from another cell, the same voice whispered, "Too late now." Something was mimicking me. Or maybe it was me. I reached a dead end, a solid wall of concrete. Or so I thought. As I shone my flashlight across it, faces began to appear. Hundreds, pressed into the wall like clay. Some screaming, some crying, some just staring. One face looked exactly like mine. Its eyes slowly opened. A door creaked open behind me. There was now a 13th cell. There were only supposed to be 12. I stepped inside. The room was completely bare except for a mirror hanging on the far wall. I approached it. My reflection didn't move. Then it lifted its hand slowly and placed it on the mirror's surface. I instinctively reached out. And when our hands met, the glass turned pitch black. Suddenly, the cell began to spin. The light above flickered violently. I saw flashes, images I couldn't explain. Myself in a straitjacket. Myself walking with a noose around my neck. Myself watching another version of me being dragged into the dark. The walls of the cell began to breathe. Inhale. Exhale. I screamed. And the walls screamed back. I ran. I don't remember how long. The hallway stretched endlessly, yet the doors repeated 19, 20, 21, then 19 again. No exit. No signs. Then I saw a door with light spilling underneath. I threw it open and found myself back in the control room. Except it wasn't mine. The monitors showed footage of me walking into Block D. Over and over. Different nights, different clothes, different versions of me, trapped in the same loop. One of them turned to the camera and mouthed the words, "You never left." I'm writing this down, hoping someone finds it. But the more I write, the more I forget what came before. I keep hearing footsteps, my own. I think there are hundreds of me now scattered across nights I'll never remember. Maybe you're reading this because it's your shift next. If you hear someone call your name from Block D, don't answer. It might be me. I stopped checking the clocks. They always read the same 2:47 a.m. I think I've lived through this same night more than 100 times. Each time it changes. Sometimes I see myself. Sometimes I see you. And sometimes I see things pretending to be me. The worst part, they're getting better at it. Tonight I noticed something new. On the security monitors there was footage I don't remember. Me sitting in the office. But I was smiling. Calm. Content. I looked happy. That's when I realized the real me was standing behind the camera, watching. I opened the staff computer, something I've done every night. But now there was a new folder on the desktop. No name, just a blinking icon. I opened it. Inside were hundreds of video clips, each one titled with a name. I clicked one at random. It was a man screaming inside a cell, pounding on the wall, begging to be let out. Then, he stops, looks at the camera, and smiles. The file name, me, move. I walked into the bathroom and glanced at the mirror. My reflection wasn't there. Instead, a version of me, older, gaunt, hollow-eyed, stared back. He lifted his hand and tapped the mirror 3 times, and I felt it on my shoulder. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, it was just my normal reflection again. Or was it I decided to write everything down just in case? Maybe someone will find this journal. Maybe you are reading it now. But if you are, let me ask, are you sure you're not already inside? Because I once found a journal just like this. Same words, same pages. And I thought the person who wrote it was someone else. But now, I'm not so sure anymore. I went back to Block D one last time. The walls were quiet. The air was still. The 13th cell was gone. Instead, there was a door. A clean white door like it didn't belong in this place. On it, a brass plaque, exit. My heart raced. This could be it, the way out. I reached for the handle, opened it, and found myself walking into the security room again. The same chair, the same cameras, the same empty hallway feed, and a piece of paper sitting on the desk that read, "Welcome to your first night shift." As I sit here finishing this entry, I hear the boat engine in the distance. Someone is coming. Another guard. Another first night. Maybe it'll be you. So let me leave you with one last message scrawled on the wall behind the door. There is no first night. There is no last. There is only now. And now belongs to us. If you found this story valuable and interesting, please hit the like button. This really helps us bring you more good and valuable content. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think, what questions you have, or what topics you would like us to cover next. We love hearing from you. Of course, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next stories. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories.